You are watching the 8.7 lesson video on solving real-life systems algebraically. So today we're going to look at how to approach word problems. Now, specifically, we're going to get into how to set up a word problem properly. So setting up a word problem is important because if you don't know what variables you're using and what they mean exactly, it's hard to understand where you're supposed to go with a problem. So the first thing we should do is properly look at all the information we have before we solve. And a great way to do that is by looking at let statements. So let's read through this question on your own and see if you can figure out what the unknown is. So as you can see, you're purchasing soccer balls and footballs for your sports camp. On Monday, you purchase 8 soccer balls and 3 footballs for $152.50. And Tuesday, you purchase 6 soccer balls and 2 footballs, and it's $113. How much does each soccer ball and each football cost? Okay, so first off, I know I'm looking at how much does each soccer ball and each football cost? Those are our two unknowns right there. Now, when we want to give them variables, I'm just going to use x and y. So let's let x equal the cost of 1 soccer ball. And let's let y equal the cost of 1 football. Now, when we're writing our equations, well, we have to have some things equal to something else, right? So let's go back into the question and look if we have any kind of equality. So here, on Monday, you purchase 8 soccer balls and 3 footballs for $152.50. So I'm going to look at this right here. This is equivalent to saying that 8 costs of the soccer ball added to 3 costs of the football will equal $152.50. So I'm going to write these with labels. And by labels, I mean we're not going to necessarily use the variables yet because I want to know what's going on. I don't want to just start plugging stuff in. So I'm going to write out 8 times soccer ball cost plus 3 times football cost is equal to $152.50. Now, looking at the next equation, we have 6 more soccer balls and 2 more footballs for $113. So in the same way, we can write 6 times the cost of a soccer ball plus 2 times the cost of a football is equal to $113. All right. So now that we have this information, we can start setting up equations and solving a system. We're going to combine 1 and 2 in step 3. So the cost of a soccer ball is X. So everywhere we see soccer ball cost, we're going to put X. And every time we see the cost of a football, that's Y. I'm going to rewrite these equations. without the labels, but with the variables so that we can solve. So I'm going to say 8 times x plus 3 times y equals 152.5. And I'm going to say that 6x plus 2y is equal to 113. Now, there are many ways to solve a system of equation. We're looking at substitution and elimination. And I think elimination would be a great way to look at this. I'm going to look at my smallest coefficients for the variables. And I see that y has smaller coefficients than x. So let's try to make these the same. And how do we do that? Well, we multiply. The easiest way is to multiply by the coefficient of the other equation. So if I'm trying to get these y's to have the same coefficient, or rather opposite, I'm going to multiply this whole equation by this coefficient. So I'm going to multiply this by 2. And I'm going to multiply this other equation by the coefficient of the other variable in the other equation. So that would be 3 times this whole equation. And now, let's do some math. Let's do some distribution. So 2 times 8x is going to be 16x. Oh, I forgot one step. We want them to be opposite, don't we? So I'm going to negate one of them so that I have a 6 and a negative 6. 2 times 3y is going to be 6y. And 2 times 152.5 is going to equal 305. So now that we have the first one done, we can look at the second equation. So I have negative 3 times 6x, and that's going to give me negative 18x. And then I have negative 3 times 2y. So that will be minus 6y. And that's going to be equal to 113 times negative 3, which is negative 339. So now that I have these two equations, I'm going to smush them together. By adding these equations, we're going to be able to eliminate the y's, and we'll be left with only an x. And then we'll be able to solve for x, substitute, solve for y. So let's add these up. So 305 minus 339 is going to be negative 34. 16x minus 18x is going to be negative 2x. And this 6y and negative 6y are just going to cancel out. You can write plus 0y, or you can just leave it. So from this, we now have that negative 2x equals negative 34. So what do we do to get x? We divide by negative 2. And so x is going to be equal to 17. Now remember, we have to keep our units on this. Our units are in dollars. So the cost is going to be $17. Now that we have x, we can substitute for y. So let's plug into one of the equations. We have 8x plus 3y equals 152.5. Plugging in for x, we have 8 times 17 plus 3y is equal to 152.5. 8 times 17 is 136. So I'm going to subtract that 136 from each side, and I'm going to get 3y equal to 16.5. Now to find y, I'm just going to divide by 3 on each side. And I'll get y is equal to 5.5. All right, so now that we know what our variables are, now that we have found what our unknowns are, we can answer the question. Let's go back to it. How much does each soccer ball and each football cost? Well, since we have our let statements and we clearly articulated which variable is which cost, this is a lot easier. So, X is the soccer ball, and X is equal to $17. So, one soccer ball costs $17. And we have Y equaling the cost of one football, and Y equal to $5.5. So, one football costs $5.5. Now, can you say $5.5? Of course. But since this is about money, I'm going to add a zero so that we can get $5.50. To review, in order to solve a word problem efficiently, we want to set it up properly. And how do we set it up properly? By reading the question to find the unknowns, and then, using let statements, give variables to what is unknown. After that, write your equation with the labels of what is in the word problem so that you can clearly see what's going on before you throw any symbols or variables in there. And then, once that's clearly done, you can plug in your variables and solve the system.